Welcome, Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. This is your host, Aaron Deliosa, and this is An Immigrant's Life podcast. An Immigrant's Life on all your social media, where you can check us out and send out a message if you or someone you know wants to come on the podcast as a guest and tell their story. Hit us up there, or you can email me at animmigrantslife@yahoo.com. In this episode, we explore a profound journey of self-discovery and healing. Our guest shares his experience navigating the darkness of racism and personal struggle, ultimately finding his path through the shadow work, therapy, and meditation. From initially distancing himself from family to embracing a blend of their cultural heritage, his story highlights the power of introspection and reconciliation. His journey is a testament to trusting one's instincts and the transformative power of self-healing and cultural integration. Immigrant Nation, you would love this easygoing but so inspiring episode, so I don't want to take too much time, all right? Without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest is at IT security. He doesn't just wave glow sticks at music festivals, he also waves the flag of freedom for Palestine. Everyone, please welcome Timur Nasafi.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Absolutely. It seemed like it was good vibes. I like the people you're interviewing. I like the line of questioning and stuff. Makes sense.
I appreciate that. I just think it on the fly sometimes. I'll write questions, but I'm like, I prefer when it's a good conversation, It's easy.
Yeah. Feels organic.
Yeah, exactly. Before we get into your life and whatever else, why don't you tell the Immigrant Nation where they can reach you or if you want to promote anything?
Sure, yeah. I guess I don't have much to promote personal wise. My Instagram handle is Amir Timur, AmirTimur with an underscore at the end. I have some links on my Instagram bio to my Spotify. I've got great playlists there. And I've linked 2 documentaries that every single human should watch that are related to the liberation of Palestine and the Palestinian struggle. And so, yeah, I guess if I want to plug anything, I would say Free Palestine.
For sure. How did you get into that? Like, obviously, we talk about offline and your background in Uzbeki, but how did you get into the Free Palestine movement?
Yeah, so I'm Uzbek. I don't have any Palestinian blood myself, but I do have cousins that are Palestinian. They're half Uzbek, half Palestinian. And my whole family has been sort of, I don't know, really in the loop with it as long as I remember. I remember growing up in my grandpa's house in Chicago. He had like a map from some magazine, or maybe he picked it up at the mosque. But it was like the annexation of the West Bank and Gaza in the 60s. And I remember growing up looking at this map on his wall and being like, what is this? As like a little boy. And then, I don't know, just growing up online in America and post 9/11, I remember like meeting a few Palestinian girls online and chatting with them and them like teaching me about their struggle and what's going on. And then I realized I had family that's related to that, and my family's family were like expelled during the original Nakba. So I was like, oh shit, like I'm only like 1 or 2 degrees separate from this. Like it's actually not that, foreign at all. So ever since I've been really outspoken about it. Probably since I was a teenager. Ever since I specifically remember since 2011, like when Israel invaded Gaza in 2011 or started bombing them again back then. I remember it being on the news and starting to talk about it with everybody back then. I must have been 18 years old.
Fire. Still have that fire, and you still continue to have that fire, which is amazing. Does it scare you that it might affect your personal and your career being,
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. If you can just, I could get fired just for coming out and being like free Palestine. If somebody sees that and associates my name with it on LinkedIn or something. But it's that's not right. Uh, Especially if America is such a free country, then we should be allowed to say what we want to say as long as we're not hurting other people. And I think it's a fraction of the risk that actual Palestinians face. And so if I get fired for saying something like that, it is what it is. I'll find another job. There's always more jobs.
Yeah, 100% for sure. I mean, that's important to you and it's personal because you're family, you know?
100%. Yeah, it's personal, and it just feels, I don't know. I have ADHD, so I have a strong sense of like justice, of like what should be right, what should be wrong. And it doesn't always coincide with what is reality, but it's how I like to live my life with a strong set of morals and ethics. I thank my parents for that one.
ADHD, you were diagnosed because you know how it is now. Like everyone has ADHD and OCD and all
Everyone
that.
has it.
You
Yeah.
know what
No,
I'm
I was actually diagnosed with it. I went to a doctor. I did the whole questionnaire, multiple things, different doctors, different therapists. I definitely have it. And it's a spectrum, like different people have it and it affects them in different ways. But like for me, it's largely just it's hard for me to focus on stuff. Um, it's hard to gather momentum. Sometimes I want to do stuff, but my executive dysfunction comes in and I can sit there stewing, being like, I want to do this. I want this to happen. I'm excited about what happens after I do this, but I just can't like bridge the gap, just get up and do the thing. Unless like someone else comes in, right? I get a body double. They're doing the same thing. I'm like, oh, I can do this now. So yeah, it's not just a thing I say. I'm definitely diagnosed with it, but I've learned to adjust my life and patterns and make it work for me.
How old were you when you were diagnosed?
Oh man, I wish I was diagnosed when I was young. It would have helped a lot. But honestly, I was only it was like I realized I spent my whole life building all these coping mechanisms and different ways of making myself do stuff, shaming myself into doing stuff. And it wasn't until COVID and like the quarantine and being locked inside and all of my all of my social circles, my patterns, my coping mechanisms, everything stopped. Everything collapsed. And I fell apart, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like what's going on? Like it can't just be that I'm locked inside. There's something else. And so I started seeing like a doctor and asking questions and stuff. And that eventually led me to get diagnosed in I think it was late 2020, maybe early 2021. But it was when the quarantine was like still ongoing. Or one of them. I don't know how it's all separated now, but it was during quarantine. Like the office wasn't open.
Yeah, it was a blur. That those 3 or whatever years it was is a blur.
It was a whole blur. We got robbed. The
Did we
universe
get
owed me three
robbed?
years.
In a way, yes, but you know what, dude? I'm grateful for that those years, because I feel like it made me stronger. Yes,
Yeah, I
there
agree.
was some darkness, but
Totally.
it gave us time to reflect. And like you start reflecting. I'm like, there is something off with me, dude. I need to fix
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. You're totally right. It like presented an opportunity to like really reflect, stop, zoom out, take a look at our lives and what's important. And in that way, it was a blessing. It was a good perspective shift that I wish did more, honestly. I wish that perspective shifted more to more people. And it seems like we've kind of rushed back into this sense of normalcy,
Well,
which like,
everybody's afraid of their monsters, right?
yep, yep,
No,
exactly.
no one wants to face that monster, man. That
No
thing's
one wants to face
powerful,
them.
dude.
You got to be homies with the monster. You got to make friends with the demons. You got to hang out with
Yeah,
them, pass the blunt.
yeah, 100%. That's why I know you're from California, and I know in California, you guys don't have basements. So where I live in Montreal, we have basements, and what I usually say is the monster in the basement. You gotta face it sometimes and just feed it sometimes. Sometimes let it win once in a while. Just let it win once in a while.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
you gotta face it every day, and you gotta tell him like, I'm the boss here. I'll give you a day, but I'll take 6 days.
100%. 100%. Got to do that shadow work. It's an important part.
100%. What do you do with shadow work, like personally? I know you bike too, which I love, by the way. I'm a cyclist myself.
I saw that. I see your stories. Yeah, I love road cycling. I love it. That's a big thing. I moved to LA recently, and I've been trying to like figure out new routes and stuff around here. Um, Outside of that, I'm really into music. I focus on a lot of music and like different forms of spirituality. I got really into Buddhism and Sufism, and I incorporate all of that with like different like meditation practices, dancing, like mindfulness and breathing exercises, and a lot of contemplation and journaling. A lot of my shadow work comes out in like themed playlists that take me through a journey, and I mindfully listen to the playlists and think about where it takes me and just accept everything that comes up. Don't try to change it. Don't try to like, oh, this needs to be this or this needs to be that. Just accept it all. It is what it is. It's part of me. I am not my thoughts. I am just experiencing my thoughts. Um, and I just sort of practice radical acceptance in that way. And that's helped me a lot with shadow work. And then, the physical exercise helps kind of ground me, whether that's riding a bike, going for walks, like meditative walks is super good. I started boxing here and there. That's been really fun for shadow work because you get to really let your anger out. Same with like, when you're riding a bike, when you're like on a really gnarly hill and for some reason you just get angry and it's like, who am I mad at? Like I brought myself to this hill and I'm going to be happy at the top, but it's just like, you're just sitting in it. And it's just so satisfying to like feel that and get past it and have like a sweet descent to make
Yeah.
up for the uphill. And I don't know, all of that is sort of just a giant metaphor for life for me in some ways. So I guess in that way, shadow work is kind of a bit of everything I do. Like I carry that darkness with me in everything I do.
Have to. The yin and the yang, it has to be balanced. Can't be just white
Exactly.
all the time, dude. This doesn't make sense, you know? You know those people
No, it
that's
doesn't make
always
sense.
happy?
Yeah.
Like,
Toxic positivity.
I, I'm like, bro, there is no way you're happy all the time. There's no way.
There's no way. Yeah. Like I know you're lying.
There, if you are, there's something wrong with you. Because everyone has darkness, right?
100%. 100%.
I love that you said about cycling. I'm going to talk about cycling a little bit because I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
it's I do a lot of physical activities. Like I play basketball, I lift weights, I hike, all this stuff. But cycling is the one that speaks to my demons. I mean, I'm so grateful that I discovered cycling. It took me a while. I'm pretty new with cycling, like pandemic, pretty much. But
Yeah.
before that, I've been biking. But like I had this like those like whatever bikes.
You're right. Yeah.
But every time I ride a bike, I love it, But then I got into really road cycling. But I
Hmm.
just love it. Like you said, we go uphill. I'm like, it's gonna suck,
Yeah.
but on the top of the hill, it's
Yep.
joy waiting for
100%.
you.
100%. Yep.
Who introduced you to road cycling?
I had a friend back in Santa Barbara. His name is Jason. He's a good friend of mine, and he got me into cycling. He kind of in. I lived in Santa Barbara for like 10 years, and for the first several years, I didn't understand it. I was like, it's really expensive here. Everyone is white. Like there's like no diversity. There's no like diversity of restaurants. There's really good Mexican food, and that's like it. And I just didn't understand like why people would pay such high rent to live there. But I wasn't doing anything like outside. I wasn't hiking. I wasn't riding bikes. I wasn't going to the beach. I was just like working, coming home, being exhausted. I was working like a really low paying job, two really low paying jobs. Um, and I just didn't get it. But then I worked with this guy, Jason, and one day he was like, just come out and ride with me. Like and he like facilitated it for me, My whole life I was like, this is like a white sport. Like I don't do white sports. I was like, I don't want to wear spandex and like get on this like $1,000 bike. Like that's insane. Like the only bikes I'd been on were like $100 Walmart bikes. So anyway, so he like got me into cycling. He found a bike for me on Craigslist, like fixed it up himself. It was like super cheap. He had like old kit for me to wear, and like he just like I was just like out there. It was like a giant thrift store commercial. I was just wearing all like secondhand stuff and everything. But it was great. And like the first ride, he took me up Mountain Road in Santa Barbara, which if you ever go to Santa Barbara, let me know. We'll go on some beautiful rides over there. It's some of the best riding in America, like period. Um, and the first time I almost puked halfway up, like not even like to the hill, like on the road to the hill, I almost puked. And then he just convinced me to keep going. And once we got to like the top of the first one, it's like a really windy road
Huh.
and it overlooks all of Santa Barbara from the side. And as soon as we got there, I was just like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And I
Mm.
looked down and I'm like, I'm dressed head to toe in spandex. I have these weird clip on shoes. I have like one water bottle and completely wet, drenched in sweat. And I was just like, I did it. Like, I didn't drive a car up here. I didn't like
Mhm.
walk up here. Like, I rode a bike up this hill to this view. And that's when I was like, boom, I love it. Like, this is sick.
Ah,
Like,
that's amazing. I love that. I love that. Yeah, the sense of accomplishment. Because I used to jog and run as well, but every time I come home, like I feel like I didn't do anything. But I
right.
can ride 200 kilometers one shot,
Yep.
come home almost half dead, and I'll be like, when's the next time?
100%.
You know?
100%. Yeah. It feels so much more impactful because you go so much further.
Hmm.
Like you spend 5 hours on the bike, and the 5 hours on a bike, you can go like 70, 80 miles. Like that's a long road. But if you spend 5, 6 hours running, you are not going to get that close, that many miles. You're still like, you might get distance like 10 miles or whatever, but you're not like leaving your city and
Yeah.
like going to a mountain range and then coming back in the same ride. Like that's a whole nother animal.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one thing I love about it too is it allows me to travel and see beautiful views, enjoy nature, and actually exercise as well.
100%. Yeah. And when you ride with friends, you're just talking the whole time. You're bullshitting. You're just like shooting the shit on a bike. And then you come back and you exercise for hours. You hung out with your friend for hours and you left your house for hours. And it's like, this is
100%.
great.
You know, it's funny. Your friend that introduced you to biking is named Jason, right?
Yep.
The guy, my friend, who introduced me to biking, guess what's his name?
Jason.
Jason. Both
That's
white, I'm
awesome.
guessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's
Who
funny.
knew? It's a
Did you
trait of
have,
Jason's.
yeah, I mean, it's a basic name for white
It
dudes,
is.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it
You
is.
know, you mentioned like, I don't want to do some white sport, whatever. Did you have growing up an adverse relationship with quote unquote white activities?
I guess I did. Yeah. I just like, um, it didn't feel like my place. It didn't feel like I was supposed to be in those spaces. And historically, every time I'd see like white sports, right, whether that's like, I don't know, like BMX, skiing, snowboarding, it's like, it's really expensive. Like you have to buy all this stuff, you have to get going. Like the only sport I was into growing up was soccer. And like, yeah, if you play like on a team, like I had to get shin guards and nice cleats and stuff. But when you're in the neighborhood playing with your kids, all you need is a ball. That's it. You just have a ball and you play. You can wear any shitty shoes you want and kick each other in the shins. You don't need anything else. Um, so it was like, I don't know, I always felt like it was not for me and I wasn't sure about that. And, through years of therapy and like lots of work on myself, I figured out that that essentially stemmed from like me having issues identifying with my own identity and figuring out where I fit in as an Uzbek born in America, and all of this stuff. And that led to me being very adverse to a lot of white things because I didn't want to be too whitewashed. I was worried about assimilation in a negative way. So overall, I was just like, I don't know, I don't want her to do these like white things. That's not my thing. And now I can kind of sit back from that and be like, that's sort of whatever. You can find good in anything. But at the same time, I'm also like, you know what? It's only one white sport at a time for me. Like while I'm cycling, I'm not going to pick up golfing. But if I quit cycling, maybe I'll try golfing. But I would never do both at the same time.
That's funny. I love that. Where did you grow up?
I kind of grew up all over the place. I was born in Chicago. I spent some years of my childhood there. I lived in Orange County. I lived in Texas. I lived in the Bay Area of California. And then I lived in the Central Valley of California, which is where I went to high school and my community college. It was in Merced, California, which was very like agricultural, kind of ghetto, very racist. And then I ended up moving to Santa Barbara. It was kind of where I escaped. I chased a white girl to Santa Barbara,
Oh boy.
and it obviously didn't work out with her like
It my boy,
almost immediately.
it never works out.
Never
If
works
you
out.
chase a
Yeah,
girl, it never works out.
it's not how it goes. Yep, completely agree. But it was a blessing in disguise because I spent the next like 10 years of my life there. I really like learned a lot and matured into who I am in Santa Barbara. And then 2 years ago, I moved to LA, where I am now. Actually, one and a half year ago now.
Hmm. Why did you guys move a lot? Was this because of dad's or mom's work or?
Um, I guess it was mostly my dad's job. He just kept switching jobs and going around. He works in like pharmaceuticals. And so he kept just like moving us around to different jobs when he would get them. And, actually growing up, I always thought it was just him doing that. But as an adult, I'm 30 now. And when I talk to my dad and ask him about some of these experiences, he'll be more honest with me. And like one of the things he told me a couple of times was we moved because how he was being treated at work and how people would treat our family in our neighborhoods. And so growing up, I was like, oh, my dad just wants to move out of Texas because he's tired of like his job. And Texas specifically, my dad always said it was the allergies. He said he was allergic to Texas air. But and as an adult now, someone who's also moved around a lot, as an adult separate from my family, I was like, there's no way he moved just because of his allergies. Like that's so much work. So like last year I asked my dad, I was like, what's like, why did we move from Texas? Like we had a nice house in Austin. Like I was friends with the neighborhood kids. I think I was like 10-ish, 11, 12 maybe. Um, and he was like, they were racist. And I was like, oh, man, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because yeah, I guess people were just, it was post 9/11. It was like right around the time of the Iraq war invasion. I think we left in 2004. So a year after we invaded Iraq, or America invaded Iraq. I didn't invade Iraq. And I guess people were really racist with my dad at work and in the neighborhood and stuff. And so we left. We moved to California.
Because they knew he's Muslim?
Yep. And like he's not like that religious, like he doesn't go to the mosque. He doesn't like, he doesn't wear the whole like get up. My mom's not in the hijab. But my dad's name is Jalaluddin Tariq Nasafi.
Oh boy.
There's no doubt. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Oh, he was born in Afghanistan. Like, he's definitely on some watch list. So, there was no hiding it. Like, no matter what, no matter how white I can act, like, my name is Timur. Like, someone's going to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. You're going to be on like a random checklist.
All the time. Yeah. We used to be in we'd get randomly selected all the time. We'd get the plane ticket and it would say SSSS on it. And you would just know you're getting selective screening right off the bat.
That is insane.
Yeah.
It still happens today?
It actually cooled down. I haven't been randomly selected in some time. I don't know what changed. Maybe they just have more digital data on us now. They don't need to scan us as much in airports. But yeah, it hasn't happened to me in some years, actually. The last time I got harassed was in Arizona, flying back from Mexico. But that was because I was flying with a bottle of tequila, which was legal. I bought it at the airport in the custom-free zone, and they still took it from me. I was like, I bought this at the airport. And they were like, no. But anyway, yeah, not so much harassment. It was bad while it was really happening, but recently it seems like they haven't been doing it in person as much. I'm sure they're watching me online.
100%.
But when it was really bad, like my grandma and my grandpa, they do the Hajj every year. They're very Islamic. And like she's been strip searched by the TSA. She was like in her 70s. Yeah.
In her 70s?
Yep. And she's like 4'10", like tiny, like, grandma, like full hijab, like super soft spoken, and they strip search her.
That is insane. That's like it's a grandma. What is she gonna do?
What? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane, man. This country is an interesting place.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. But growing up, did you feel any of that, or you always felt you were welcome anywhere you live?
I definitely felt it. I think there's like I remember 9/11, and I remember before that I just felt like I was just one of the kids. I didn't like I knew that I was like, a child of immigrants. I knew that my parents would always pull us aside and be like, this is for them, this is for us, like this is how we need to think about things and talk about things. But I was still just like one of the kids at school. I didn't really have that level of separation. Um, and after 9/11 happened, I didn't really think of it as black and white as I do now, as I did then either, right? Because I was a kid. And it wasn't until like not even Texas. In Texas, I think I was too young. Like my dad was getting the brunt of it, but I was just like, I was literally one of the kids in the cul-de-sac, like outside in the suburban house, like running around with other kids. And I would hang out with like Latinos and white kids, no problem. But it was when we first moved to the Bay Area in 2004, I think. Um, it was like way more blatant, like kids using slurs and, fights and, lots of people calling each other like terrorists and worse things and slurs that are even for like other races would get applied to me and stuff. And it was just really like blatant and outspoken. And then you'd see like the parents back them up and stuff. So basically, from the time that I was a preteen onwards, it was really clear to me that I wasn't like normal. Like I wasn't with the other kids. I was on this other side. Um, and that's when I started that probably led to like my radicalization of my like political beliefs and social beliefs and stuff like that, because it's just always been how I've been treated. And like for me also, like I would always think about like other people, like because I would always be like, I'm pretty normal. Like I'm well abled, my body works fine. Like I have to wear glasses, but that's like a pretty regular thing. And like I'm not that dark skin. I don't like show my ethnicity that much. Like I don't look very Uzbek. People
Mm.
think I'm people ask me if I'm Filipino. People ask me if I'm Kazakh. People ask me if I'm Persian. I get Persian a lot.
Persian, I see the
Um,
Persian. Yes.
yeah, I get that a lot. Yeah, especially in LA. But so and then I think about other people who like show their race, or show their like backgrounds and how they get discriminated against. It's so much worse than even what I've been facing. And I just think that's fucked up. Like I don't think anybody should have to go through what I went through, let
Mm.
alone anything worse than that, which happens more frequently. Like that's just crazy to me. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I guess I would say preteen on, yeah, it was pretty obvious.
Are you close to the Uzbek culture?
Yes and no. Um, I was like kind of the black sheep of my family. I ran away from it for a long part. I tried to lean really into it when I was young, and then I distanced myself from my family for a bit because things weren't going so like well for me, trying to like branch out and do my own thing. And then over time, I came back around and started sort of identifying with my roots again and trying to like build up my community. And especially as an adult after living by myself for so long, LA doesn't have a lot of Uzbeks. Of the Uzbeks they do have, they're sort of condensed in specific areas or even apartment buildings. And a lot of them are very conservative. Um, and so I would try to like find the cool ones. I think, I'm very fortunate. Like my family is probably one of the first Uzbek families in America, like period. My grandpa came to America in like the 70s from Afghanistan, and he slowly brought over his family. And so my dad came over to America in 1981, and he was like 17 or 18. And so he spent most of his adulthood like growing up here. He did like 4 years of high school in 1 year and learned English and started college and all this shit. And so like they were like, my grandpa was Uzbek, but he came from Afghanistan, and so he got here early. I think he was on some sort of work exchange program type thing. Um, but he got here early, and most Uzbeks, like Uzbekistan, didn't really have like a clear cut way of immigrating to America until the collapse of the Soviet Union and then the subsequent takeover by the dictator that they had for so long. dictator. He was president, but like he was a dictator. Um, and so after like 90, I think that was 91 or 92, they started to like open up relations. And over time in the 90s and 2000s, immigration started happening more frequently. So to me, it sort of feels like I'm ahead of the game by like maybe 2 decades, like at least 10, 15 years than a lot of other ones. Like I was born and raised here. Like I was the first Nasafi born in America. Um, and probably one of the first Uzbeks born here. I don't know if there's any clear way to know for sure, but growing up, my parents and my grandpa would get calls from like universities in America that would teach Central Asian languages and Central Asian cultures and stuff. And they would literally be like, hey, like we have an Uzbek guy here, like, can you translate? Or, he's lonely. The government brought him here. Can you please spend time with him so he feels some at home? So like, yeah, like there was just nobody. And so my grandpa was sort of like this big cultural like focal point where people would come around and try to experience Uzbek culture with him. Um, and actually now he runs the Uzbek American Association of Chicago. He's the founder of that, and like he's like the president or whatever. So he runs that, which is the biggest Uzbek association in America. And he's still running it to this day. He's in there with his chopon, dupe, and like a cane, and he's just repping the culture all day.
That's awesome.
Um,
When are they gonna make their
yeah,
statue?
I know, right? Yeah. Don't say it too loud. They're gonna make me do it.
Well, they have to. I mean, he's a legend.
He is a legend. I would love to put up a statue of him somewhere. That'd be sick.
That would be
That'd be
amazing.
sick. Yeah.
Was that a pressure for you seeing this great man leading all these people to be better, to get out of the shadow?
For sure. It was a lot of pressure growing up. Um, I mean, I'm not only am I the oldest firstborn son of my direct family, but I am the son, right, of the patriarch. My grandpa is the patriarch, and then his firstborn son is my dad, and I'm his firstborn son, and so it's like in the lineage, like I am directly below who's supposed to take over, so to speak. Um, so and then and on top of that, like ancestrally speaking, all of the men in my family are named after famous Central Asian rulers. Like, I'm named after Timur, Amir Timur. Like I have a cousin named Babur after Babur Shah. My dad's named Jalaluddin after like Rumi and a lot of other like famous Jalal. And like my grandpa's named Surajuddin. And these are all Arabic names, right? Like Deen, like of the Deen. Um, so it's a lot of pressure on multiple angles to like live up to something. And while I can't quite be like my namesake, I wish I could conquer nations and build pyramids of my enemy's skulls. That would be sick. But no, I have to work a desk job.
Hey,
uh,
somebody has to do it.
yeah, yes.
By the way, thank you for
Yeah,
that because I didn't even know anything about Tamerlane. I love Genghis Khan. I'm Genghis Khan all day, boy.
yeah,
Even though
yeah.
he's horrible person, obviously,
But a legend.
but a legend nonetheless. So why did you run away from the family? Was that because of the pressure?
Yeah, it was pressure. It was just like, I was raised like very traditionally in a lot of ways, and it was very like enmeshed, right? So it was very like the family has one consciousness, and you're just enjoying that consciousness, and you all make decisions together and for each other, and like, and I was supposed to grow up and marry an Uzbek girl, have a traditional housewife, take care of my family, go to college, do all the things, and my peers, like my American peers, weren't having to do that. They were growing up, making their own decisions. And granted, maybe some of those decisions weren't good ones, but they got to make them for themselves. Um, and so that was, I was watching that, and I was watching that in parallel, like of the way I'm supposed to go and the way my ancestors have gone versus what I'm seeing in America at the time I was growing up. And I was just like, this is bullshit. Like, I want to make my own decisions. Um, Even if it landed me in the same place, I didn't want it to be made for me. I wanted to make that decision for myself. So in the beginning, that, was not taken well. and I had to violently eject myself from the family. I hit that eject button, and I like disappeared for a while. I disappeared for like a year, and honestly, after a year of like being by myself, living in Santa Barbara, breaking up with this girl, I was just like lost and figuring shit out. And then I tried some mushrooms. I tried some magic mushrooms, and they changed my life. I had epiphany after epiphany, and that one trip, I understood. I don't know, it just gave me perspective. It gave me a lot of perspective, and that perspective led me to let my family back into my life, but on my terms, with like boundaries and enforcing my boundaries. And eventually, over time, I developed a relationship with my parents again, but this time as like an adult and my own person. And it took a long time. It took a lot of change on every single person involved. We all grew apart and together. And now I have a great relationship with my parents. Like, great relationship. We're friends. We could talk about anything. Um, yeah. It yeah.
Yeah,
So
I love to hear that, man. Congratulations and good job.
thank you. Thank you.
That's hard, dude.
Appreciate that.
Like, you know how like, a lot of people like, oh, if your family like doesn't care about your happiness, just cut them off. Like, no, you wait. That's your people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not so easy, especially with all the like cultural context and like, this doesn't I don't know, it's especially hard, I think, when you're a child of immigrants and when you're a third culture kid. Like, I don't, this doesn't feel like my country, and even when it feels like it's my country and I'm stoked to be here or I'm proud of her or whatever, somebody will say some shit that makes me remember, like, oh right, like I'm not the default here. Um but at the same time, like when I go to Uzbekistan, right, and I show up to the bazaar and I'm buying something, they're like, "Where are you from? Like,
Hmm.
what is that accent?" And I have to lie and say I'm some village, and they're like, "You're not from this village.
Get
Like,
out
we
of here, bro.
know."
You first of all,
Yeah,
you look different, you smell different, you act different. Get out of here.
100%. They can just tell. Uh, so then it's like I don't really have like a clear, like, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. I kind of belong in both. I have blood related to both and time in both. But ultimately, like, the family that raised me is sort of the only one who really understands, because no one else has seen it firsthand from that perspective and through those like 4 years. And I'm just lucky enough to have a family that I can like talk about these things, get along with now, and not everybody has that. And I feel for them, like that's hard. And I feel very, very privileged to be in the position that I'm in.
100%. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I've got one sister.
How's your relationship with her?
Great. Yeah, me and her are like we've always been close. She's like one of my best friends, and we chat all the time. We play video games together. Growing up, it was always me and her huddled around the CRT TV, playing like PlayStation 2 games. And now as an adult, like I bought her like a PS4, and we play online, and we just sync whenever we can.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
it's
I
been
love
nice.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're lucky to have siblings. People that have siblings are lucky most of the time, right? And especially if you're going through things, 'cause that's your war buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, that person knows what kind of war
100%.
you went through. There's no one in the world that will understand you as much as your sibling would.
Completely agree.
You'll
Completely
meet
agree.
people, like, oh, my best friend or my girlfriend that loves me, whatever. You talk to that girl, she's like, hey, remember that one time, mom and dad?
Yeah, exactly. You
That's
must
why,
have siblings too, or you don't have
yeah,
siblings?
I have two. I have
Okay,
a
yeah.
brother and a sister. So we know the war. We know the trenches.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got the trenches all mapped out.
We laugh at it now, obviously, because we're
Sure. Yeah.
old. Like you can't hold grudges.
No.
You
Yeah,
gotta
you
forgive.
gotta you gotta forgive. You gotta move on.
How did you learn how to forgive your parents?
Um, I mean, the mushrooms helped for sure. That was the first step. I was very closed minded. I would say I was open minded, but I wasn't. I was closed minded. And the mushrooms helped. opened my mind a little bit. And then from there, learning to trust myself, learning to like do therapy, learning to journal, learning to like, more psychedelics, embracing euphoria and joy in different ways, and like, adding, I don't know, like experiencing more of my life in my own ways led me to trust my parents more. Because I think at first I was really mad at them for having me here. I was like, why did you like bring me to this country and have me in this country if you're just gonna be mad about me enjoying the things in this country? Like you should have had me in Uzbekistan. Like this doesn't make sense. Like you don't want me to do American stuff, but you had me in America. Like what the fuck? Um, but growing up and as an adult doing my own things, like going out working, right, making the money to bring my own food home and food on the table, making the money to go and like enjoy music concerts, the expression of culture and like human personal expression through fashion and art and music and whatever else, like the way everyone expresses themselves in America. um, and just seeing like all of the different flavors of humanity and the possibilities of my life, and then realizing that like my parents are also experiencing this for the first time, right? Like they didn't make this decision to come here knowing that how anything was going to be. They just came here wishing for the best and trying to build better opportunities for me and my sister and anybody else that comes after us. um, and that kind of, I don't know, that kind of opened my mind and broadened my expansions and blew my consciousness away and made me be like, wait a minute, like we're all just experiencing this for the first time, and we all just have to have grace with each other. And I wouldn't have had any of this without my parents taking those risks, you know. And if my parents hadn't gone through all of that crazy shit, like coming to this new country, learning all the languages, learning the customs, like then I would have had to do it somewhere else probably. And who knows how that would go, or if I would be happy anyway. And so there's no point holding on to the what if this or what if that, or oh, my parents fucked me over for this. Like, not that's not necessarily true. Maybe it's true from one perspective and one angle, but the other angles are also true. And so I like to focus on the positive, and more than anything, they enabled me for all of this stuff. And the fact that I can work this job, go take some mushrooms, go see a beautiful show, hang out with people of any ethnicity or any religion, and do whatever I want. That's because of what they gave me and the sacrifices that they made. And so now it almost feels like it's my duty to enjoy those things, like even if I'm not going to do cultural things, if I'm not going to get married, have kids, and have 8 kids that have another 8 kids and spread my name, even if I don't do that, I'm still like enjoying their legacy. And like, I'm still, I can do an interview with you and talk about their story and my story. I can uh, be like, I could talk to other growing up Uzbeks in America about like, hey, you don't have to do it this way. You can do anything you want here. Like, just trust yourself. Just enjoy your life. And that's like something people don't tell Uzbeks, especially when they're growing up. That's like they say it's for oksapals, it's for old whitebeards. You get to do that. You get to sit around and mess around and be spiritual when you're old and retired and everyone's left. But I don't want to wait until I have a white beard. I want to do that shit now.
No, for sure, 100%. Yeah, but it's fear, right? Like people doesn't want to take that road that you did. That road is rough, dude. To leave your family, find yourself, eventually forgive yourself and forgive your family, to find your own
100%.
happiness. That's hard, and a lot of people, unfortunately, they don't have that privilege, or they don't allow themselves to have that privilege.
Completely agree. 100%. Yeah. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's not easy, any step of it. Um, and yeah, I do feel very privileged, both in how I've done it, the opportunities that were handed to me, and just how everything had to fall together at a perfect pace and way for this to even play out like this for me. If my dad hadn't been willing to talk about this stuff or change his own mind about some of these things, I wouldn't be in this position. I wouldn't be have the kind of relationship I have with him. It's because of the privilege I've got, situations I'm in, that it all worked out.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time. It takes time to educate people and learn. But as long as you're open and you're forgiving and you're honest, most of the time you're gonna be okay.
100%. Totally agree.
You know, you're not gonna have kids.
Right now, the thought is no. Yeah.
Enjoying your
It's
life too much,
just,
huh?
I'm enjoying my life way too much. And just like, I think if it was, ironically, if I was in Uzbekistan with like the sort of support network that my parents would have had if I was raised there, I probably would have had kids. Because you like the neighborhood helps you, like the daycare is provided, the school is paid for, like there's all this stuff that's sort of taken care of. You're enabled to build a family in means outside of your own. And in America, it's very much not the case. You have to put it all together, pay for all of it, figure it all out. And it's only getting more and more expensive, and it just doesn't seem feasible to me right now. Um, People would always tell me like, but like you should grow up and like you'd be a great role model to these kids and da 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 da. And you know what? I think I can be a role model as an uncle. I could
Yeah.
be a really cool uncle to other people. It doesn't have to be my kids. It can be other people. And like I mentioned, like I feel like I'm ahead of the curve with the Uzbeks in America. And so there's got to be a lot of Uzbek kids in America growing up, Central Asian kids in America growing up that maybe are born here or maybe are close to having being born here. They were raised here, and they're gonna need someone like me to look up to and be like, this guy did it. He's fine. He didn't get struck by a lightning bolt. The KGB didn't show up and kill this guy. Like he's fine. And it's like, exactly, you can do it too. Like,
Yeah,
so
you could be like your a different kind of your grandpa. You're like more of the people, the kids that were growing up in America and whatnot. Like you can love the culture and also live your life in America.
that's exactly what I'm trying to do right there. Yep. And it's figuring out the balance of how I want to like get that across. But yeah, that's exactly it. I'm trying to live my life to the fullest in that way and be a good example of other people can also do it. You don't have to do it my way, but you can just do it your own way. You don't have to do it your parents' way or your grandparents' way or the cultural way. Just take the parts that you like from all of it and make your own thing.
100%. Do you have a group or a organization that you have or you're planning to start?
Actually, I have started a group with my cousin. My cousin Bober, actually, he and I have started a group called Central Asians of Los Angeles. And we're trying to essentially facilitate those sort of meetings where we have not just Uzbeks, but all Central Asians, because the community's not very big here, to just get together and support each other through their endeavors and cultures and social events and whatever it is. We've had 2 meetings so far. And so we're really just getting started and still trying to figure out kind of which direction we want to really take it as far as the in-person meetings and the remote stuff and whatnot. But yeah, it's coming together, and I'm really excited to have something to put that kind of effort into and be the front, like be like the you know have the organization be the face of like what we're trying to like accomplish.
I love that, man. Yeah, you need someone like that, something like that that makes the kids like, oh yeah, if we have people here, you know. Yes, I understand they're Americans and all this stuff, but
Right.
it's you have that different spice that they only know and they understand, you know.
Exactly. I like that. Spice. That's exactly it.
Listen, Timur, this has been such an amazing conversation. I really do appreciate it. Before we close out, do you have anything to say or remark or anything you'd like to impart us with?
I don't know, I guess one of the most expensive lessons I've ever learned is just to trust yourself, and it's something that I learn on a deeper level every single year, it seems like. But no matter how many counseling courses I buy, how many therapists I go to, how many career coaches I talk to, how many different changes and shifts and different people, all this shit happens. Ultimately, in the end, just trust yourself, trust your gut, go with what's right for you, and never look back.
Beautiful. Again, Timur, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron. This was wonderful. I like what you're doing. I really respect it. It's really
Thank
cool,
you.
man.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye. Again, Timur, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aaron Del Yosa for An Immigrant's Life. I will see you guys later.